right, time for our headliner this morning. He's with us now, Defense Secretary Mark Esper. Mr. Secretary, good morning to you. Welcome. Thank you for being here this morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
How would you describe the current level of tensions and the threat in the Middle East as we speak?
Well, look, they're obviously high. We've had Iran-sponsored militia groups attacking U.S. forces now for several months. It culminated in the death of an American last week and the wounding of several soldiers. And this obviously crossed the line for us, and we responded with attacks, strikes on multiple sites of Kataib Hezbollah, which is an Iran-sponsored terrorist group. And I think we responded at the direction of the president quite forcefully, and it was a very bold and decisive move, and asserted our right of self-defense and the fact that we will act in order to defend our personnel and our interests in the region.
Could you provide some clarity on the troop deployment that has been announced so far, 750 going over, thousands more prepared to go? What does the timeline look like, and what is the possibility that more are sent?
Well, again, a priority for us is always the safety and security of our people, whether it's our diplomats, American citizens, or our forces in the region. As we've seen the events of the past couple of days, we feel very sure that our embassy is well secured and it has sufficient capability there to deter anything that happens. But just the same, it's prudent, based on lessons learned over the past, that we deploy additional forces to either reinforce that site or other sites in Iraq, or frankly any other location in the Middle East as this thing escalates, if it does indeed escalate.
You know, Mr. Secretary, you put the words Iran and embassy together. We think about the siege in Tehran and the lessons learned from there, that you had protesters who made it into the compound and then took over. What are the rules of engagement for our soldiers now at the embassy? Anybody comes over the wall gets shot. Anybody who tries to break in a window in the interior gets shot. How much leeway do they have, and what are the red lines for the use of force?
Well, clearly, we have always have the right of self-defense, and we have more than sufficient capability on the ground at the embassy and poised nearby to respond to anything. But it's important to back up and understand a few things. First of all, the embassy is situated in a compound that is over 100 acres large. The embassy itself was built in the wake of 9/11 and other things, so it's a very strong, capable facility that would be very, very hard to breach. And it would be a bad day for anybody that tried to do that. All that's happened so far is that these militia groups, who were directed by Iran to go out and do this demonstration, if you will, this show, is they got access to the outer compound that was supposed to be defended by Iraqi security forces. As we know at this time that they have retreated. But we are prepared just the same for anything else that could happen.
You made an interesting point. It was supposed to be defended by Iraqi security forces. You also make the point that the embassy is in the green zone. The only way for these militias to get there was through multiple checkpoints, the most secure part of Baghdad, et cetera, and come over a bridge. Are you worried that if this was not coordinated, aided, and embedded by the Iraqi government, that there are elements of the Iraqi government so aligned with Iran that it's a wink and a nod for this kind of behavior?
Well, the Iranian government is clearly trying to work its influence all throughout all throughout Iraq, and in Baghdad in particular. I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen thousands of normal, average Iraqis over the past several months protesting either corruption in their government or the malign influence of Tehran in their government. So it's something that we watch carefully. We, of course, support a strong, prosperous, and independent Iraq. We respect Iraq's sovereignty. But at the same time, we're going to defend ourselves and our interests and our people in Baghdad.
The president tweeted out that they will pay a big price. He said this is not a warning. This is a threat in a New Year's message. Mr. Secretary, what is President Trump's willingness to further engage there?
Look, the president has been very engaged. The national security team has been on the phone with him or has met with him daily, if not every few hours. He wants to make sure that our forces are well taken care of, that we're capable of accomplishing our mission on the ground. And he's absolutely correct that if anybody challenges us, they will be met with a severe response, a strong response by U.S. forces.
What does that severe, strong response look like?
Oh, I'm not going to telegraph what we're going to do, but people know that we have vast capability to do any number of things. We will act in response to actions by Iran or its proxies, and we will act to preempt any attacks on our forces, our personnel, by Iran or its proxies.
Are President Trump's views on how to proceed in line with that of his security team?
Absolutely. We all agree on the importance of asserting our right of self-defense, of protecting our forces, of defending our interests in the region. Again, you got to keep in mind that we are there in Iraq working with our Iraqi partners to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS. That's something we work closely on them. Through the president's direction, we were able to physically defeat the caliphate. It remains physically defeated, if you will, and now our aim is to deter further Iranian bad behavior that has been going on now for over 40 years. It's time that Iran started acting like a normal country.
It's a long list of bad behavior, and I'm glad you brought that up. You know, you and I have both spent a lot of time in the Middle East, sir. You back during your time, even as a lieutenant colonel, during the Gulf War. It's a little bit like the sandbox from grade school, and sometimes bullies don't understand sanctions. They don't understand tough talk, deployments, airstrikes against proxies. Bullies understand a punch in the nose. Is there a time that the Iranian bullies and the Ayatollahs need a punch in the nose to their leadership that goes beyond merely sanctions and rhetoric?
Well, again, I'm not going to speculate with regard to next steps. I would just reiterate that we retain the right of self-defense of our forces, our interests, our partners in the region. We've said that very clearly going since my time in office now, and at the time where the Iranian-sponsored attacks on the Saudi oil facilities as well. We need to stand up to Iran, and we need them to behave like a normal country. That means ending their nuclear program, ending their long-range ballistic missile program, the stopping of hostage-taking, and, of course, their malign behavior where they are inspiring terrorist groups, resourcing and directing them all the way from Africa across the Middle East and into Afghanistan.
I get the demand, sir, but it appears as though the Iranian regime's not really listening. Hostage-taking, they still have Robert Levinson. As you noted, they attacked the Saudi oil facilities, and there was not a military response. They shot down the U.S. drone. There was not a military response. So far, there's only been a military response against their militias in Iraq. Is the idea here that only the loss of U.S. life will result in a U.S. military response?
Well, what needs to happen is the international community needs to come together once and for all and condemn Iran's bad behavior, to help us with the maximum pressure campaign and to tell Iran that it's time to sit down, behave like a normal country, and come up with a plan with regard to their various aspirations that addresses everybody's concerns. But it will take the international community to do that, and that's what we call on them all to do. In the meantime, again, we will continue to defend our interests. We will continue to support our friends and allies, and defend principles such as the right of commerce and navigation in the Strait of Hormuz.
Going to that point of the international community, what right now is the coordinated response with the international community to respond?
Well, we've had a lot of good statements from our friends and partners both in the region and in Europe and elsewhere, condemning the attacks on the embassy. We've had private shows of support as well with regard to our actions. So, again, I think it's time for the international community to come together and to stand up to Iran and tell them that they need to stop this once and for all.
Obviously, there's a lot of options on the table that could further escalate the situation there or not. President Trump is vowing to respond. He could respond forcefully. He could respond and do nothing. He could also withdraw, shock everyone and withdraw troops altogether from Iraq. Is he considering all of those options?
Well, again, I'm not going to talk about what the president is or is not considering, but he is committed to defending our interests, our personnel, our friends in the region, and, of course, standing up to Iran and deterring Iranian bad behavior. And so we will either respond or take preemptive action as necessary to make sure that we defend those interests.
You made an interesting point about it's time for Iran to act like a normal country. They haven't, basically, for 4 decades. There were 2 times they really backed down. One was Operation Praying Mantis, where Reagan sank about 1/3 of their Navy. The other time was something that you know about well, which is right after the second Gulf War, when they suspended their nuclear program after George W. Bush invaded Iraq. Those 2 times are times of sort of disproportional U.S. military response to an adversary, and the Iranians back down. Are you worried that the only way they will back down this time and act like a normal country is with an overwhelming U.S. military action?
Well, it's up to them to decide. We've told them what they need to do on multiple occasions, and we're prepared again to defend ourselves and defend our interests. And we've shown a willingness to exercise and use the military to do so, and we remain prepared to do so in the region.
As we discuss escalating tensions in the Middle East, what is next for North Korea? How does the president and his defense team plan to respond to the situation there?
Well, we think the best path forward with regard to North Korea is a political agreement that denuclearizes the peninsula. We are on that path. We want to remain on that path, and we would obviously urge Kim Jong-un and his leadership team to sit back down at the negotiation table to do that. But that said, we remain, from a military perspective, ready to fight tonight as need be, but more importantly, or as importantly, I should say, enable our diplomats to get an agreement done. So we would urge restraint by Kim Jong-un. At the same time, we work closely with our partners in South Korea to ensure the readiness of our forces on the Korean Peninsula.
You know, nuclear blackmail is a game plan that the Kim family knows pretty well. We don't need to tell you that. But to the issue of U.S. military deterrence, John Bolton, former national security advisor, North Korean hawk, he tweeted yesterday that there needs to be congressional hearings on whether or not our forces are indeed ready to fight tonight. Can you give us anything beyond the assurance? Is there some hard facts that the Kim regime needs to understand in terms of what ready to fight tonight means?
Look, we have a full array of forces. They are ready. They are air and naval, Marine, Army forces. We have our South Korean partners with us, and then we have a broader set of allies and partners out there as well. So I'm confident in the readiness of our forces to deter North Korean bad behavior, and should that fail, to fight and win as necessary.
Secretary Esper, before we let you go, I know you have a very busy morning here. If you could just lay out a timeline of what is next in the Middle East as far as U.S. response and coordinated response, international response, what we can look forward to in the hours and days to come here.
Well, my crystal ball doesn't work that well, but I would say that we will continue to reinforce our presence from a military perspective in the region, to protect our personnel, to whether they are diplomats or American citizens or military personnel. We will ensure the readiness of our forces, again, throughout the region to either respond or preempt any type of attacks on U.S. forces. At the same time, I know Secretary Pompeo is working aggressively to talk to our allies and partners, whether they are in the immediate region or beyond, to build political support for what we're doing. And again, I would call on the international community to say, you know, it's time finally for Iran to start behaving like a normal country.
Right, and we know that Secretary Pompeo postponed his planned trip to Ukraine because of all of this. The 750 troops that have been deployed, what will their mission be? Where are they going first?
Well, they're deploying to the region. I won't give specific locations, but their immediate mission will be prepared to reinforce our sites in Iraq first, but then more broadly, as need be, to make sure, again, we have sufficient force protection on the ground.
All right. Secretary Mark Esper, we appreciate you coming on America's Newsroom this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.